Hello, friends. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. I think it's all fixed now, so if you are here, I would love it if you popped in and said hello. And I'm going to move a couple things because a few things got in the way as I was trying to get things fixed. Alright, let me... One of the things that you guys don't generally get to see is I will take some washi tape and I will put markers down on my desk so that I can try to remain in screen for the videos. It's just a little something, right? Because I tend to work down here because this is the edge of my desk, and I try to be better. Anyway, this is our first card today. It's super fun. It, of course, does not want to focus, but, and our envelope. So it does not want to stay folded because it's freshly folded, so I haven't had it sitting under any weight for a little bit, and so it wants to pop open, but that's okay. Alright, so hello. Thank you for joining me. I know I said part of that already, but I forgot to hit record, and so I'm doing that part again. But if this is your first time here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. I see Rhonda is here already today. Thank you, Rhonda. My name is Michelle. I am with Crafters Northwest, and the products that I use, generally speaking, are close to my heart products. You do not have to use them, but if you fall in love with them like I did and you need a maker, I would love to be that person for you. So, with that being said, let's get started. And we're going to do the card that's all by itself, and the other two cards are kind of go together. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. But our first card today, we are actually using some Tim Holtz Distress watercolor paper, and we do still have some left in stock. There's not much there. Can you do this on regular paper? Yeah, probably, but it might warp a little bit. So I have not tried it on regular White Daisy cardstock, but you are welcome to try it if you don't have the watercolor cardstock. So that being said, let's show you what we are using today. Here it is. So we are using 3 different ink colors today: Scarlet, Espresso, and Evergreen. Please excuse the cat hair. So we have these 3 inks. Yeah, they're kind of on screen. We are using 1 stamp set, and that is the Holiday Banner. Now, the thin cut is no longer available, but you can get the stamp set still, and it is a beautiful stamp set. So I thought I would show you a way to use it that you don't need to use the thin cuts for it, right? I think it's a pretty fantastic card even without the thin cuts. So this is what we're working with today. So we are going to use a good number of the stamps, actually. So you're welcome to change the sentiment on here. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Merry Holidays, 'tis the season, joy to the world. Like, you could do anything on here. I chose Happy Holidays, mostly because I liked the font of Happy. So that's what I went with. Alright, what else are we using? So like I said, the watercolor cardstock. We have a little bit of scarlet, some white daisy, and of course an envelope. You can't have a card without an envelope. Well, I mean, you can, but obviously it's much easier to give cards when you have envelopes. All right, so my card, I have some white dot embellishments on here. Okay. That's essentially all of them that come in the package for that particular size. So I have a few different options to show you. So we have the gold glitter gems, right? That's what I used in the center, but you could use them on the little berry bob things if you'd like. Hopefully, okay, good. Okay, so we have the gold. We have silver, clear sparkles. They're clear sparkles, but the bottom is a silver reflective material, so they look like silver. But I'm also going to show you with some gold shimmer trim. And we actually have a number, wait, how many do we have now? Let's look and see. I do believe we still have a number of them, but I know a good chunk of things got kind of narrowed down a little bit. So if I say a number, it's going to be like 2. Right? That's how things go. So you can use regular glitter paper, right? We do have a good variety of that. And then, oh, we don't even have gold anymore. All right, what do we have? We have shimmer trim, Journey, Candy Apple, Seabrook, Pine, and Silver. So let me pull one of the colors that we do actually have, because I try to do these videos with things that you can still get, right? That's a little bit important. All right, what do I have? Seabrook. I have Journey, but Journey obviously is not going to go well. I'm surprised I don't have Candy Apple. I thought I did. Pine. Pine. I thought I had silver, but apparently it's elsewhere. All right, so we'll be able to choose from one of these 2 colors, and I'll show you another option if you have a 1/8 inch punch. That should be big enough. So the other option is you can use sequins. So there is that. All right, let's get started, shall we? So I'm going to move these things off back into my little container so they are out of the way. And so I am kind of cheating with this card. It's not cheating. It's using your resources wisely. So I am using both of my Misty sizes today. So I have a mini and I have an original size. There is also a large, which I do not have, which allows you to stamp on your 12 by 12 pages. But we're not that far yet. So let's move some things out of the way. And we are going to grab our watercolor cardstock. Now I generally stamp on the smooth side. There is a texture side. Let's see, will it pick it up on camera? It kind of looks staticky on my screen versus a smooth side. But when you look at it, you'll clearly be able to say which side is what. All right, so what you're going to do is I have a clear plastic to protect my my paper here. You are going to take that largest poinsettia and you're going to kind of center it left to right, but you're going to bring it up. Let's see, our center is approximately 2.5 inches up. So you want to have it somewhere. You could make it a little bit lower. Wherever you put it is fine. You just kind of want to have it centered left to right. So since mine is already in here, perfect. If you are great at lining up the stamps, feel free to just use a block. I did try that on my sample and I did pretty decently, but I know that as soon as I hit record, it's not going to go the same. So I'm going to use my Misty. All right, so, and I'm sure I've shared in the past, but one of my little secrets is I put some washi tape on this. So this fits in here perfectly. It is just a piece of acetate. It's actually a page protector that I cut down. And I keep this in my Misty. I have one for both sizes so that I can move things around. I could put my stamp on here, move it around to where I want, close the door, pick it up, and it's all good. Rhonda suggested liquid pearls. Also a fabulous idea. I don't know how many of them we actually have in our book anymore though. And I know we have a bunch of stuff in our stash, right? Everybody does. All crafters do. And so that is always an option. We don't actually have them anymore. And I know the Christmas stickles are currently out of stock, but they are coming back. So there are those options. The other thing too is you could take the silver ones, the clear ones, I keep calling them silver, and color them with a marker. To be whatever color you want to be. Anyway, we could come up with probably another 100 different options. So we are going to ink up our stamp and we are going to stamp that once. We're going to find our Misty sock. And voila. You can stamp more than once. Because of what we're doing, you don't need to do that. Unless you didn't get a clear impression, then you can stamp again. All right, we are going to actually take our water brush, also still available. And in case I have too much water, I do have a little tissue here. And I'm just going to pull from the edges of each petal to the center. So I'm grabbing that ink that we just put down and pulling it in. Now, if you are unsure how good you'll be at the coloring part, I would recommend starting with the petals down here at the bottom, because we're going to be cutting those away. So if you need some practice on where your brush tip should go, that would be a great place to start. And then we're just going to do this all the way around. Try not to really leave any white spaces. You can a little bit because this is going to look like it's watercolored, and watercolor is not perfect by any stroke of the imagination. And I am not generally one that is a color for relaxation type of person. but for some reason this is kind of that for me. Maybe because of how much concentration, even if I can't say the word right, but maybe that's why it works. Does anybody remember the books that they used to have? I had them as a kid. I don't know how long they were out before or after that, but the images were essentially printed with a watercolor ink. You just take your water brush to the image, just like we're doing here, and color in your image. I loved those when I was a kid. Okay, so that is done. We are done with our water brush. We're not going to use that anymore tonight. We do, however, need a mask. So I don't want to get ink on the back of this, so I'm just going to kind of line this up under here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's see if there's enough ink on here. Perfect. All right, so scissors. Excuse me, that was kind of loud. I apologize. All right, so we're going to trim off some of this from the gecko. So on this, we are cutting on or just inside of our petal outline. And yes, I know I do this a bit differently than most people, in that I am going and doing one side of each petal all the way around, and then I'll go back and do the other way. And I do that because it makes my brain happy. I have no other explanation for it. All right, so we've gone all the way around one way, and then we'll just go back and cut out each of these little pieces. So the good news is it's super quick, and even if you had the thin cuts, you would still need to do this for this particular card, or you could do creative masking. I mean, you just use washi tape or whatever, but and yes, I did use one for my sample, however I managed to get it wet, and so we needed to create a new one. So presuming I don't get this one wet, I can put it with the stamp set and I can use it next time, or whenever. Whenever I need to. Oh. Careful not to rip it. All right. Now, the hard part is lining up. Which apparently not going to be so hard today. Awesome. All right. Let's grab our our stamping mat from the MISTI. But before we do that, actually, we need a ruler and a pencil. Now, these numbers will vary depending on where you have your stamp on your card. So just remember that this is kind of a starting point. All right, so first off, no matter what size you do, you need to find the middle of your card. So with my ruler, I'm lining up at 3 7/8, which puts the 6 inches right in the middle. Okay. So then I'm going to go up let's see, I'm going to put a mark straight up and down, and then I'm going to put a second mark at 2 inches. Okay, so I know where that corner point is. So now I want angles, and I also want to pay attention to where this is going to fall. Right, so if I have my point here, you know, maybe I'll go right here. So this is just under 3 inches. So let's do 3 3/4. And we'll mark both sides. 2 3/4 rather, not 3 3/4. 1, 2 3/4. All right. And we're going to draw pencil lines from our sides to the line. We do not need to mark on the mask itself, okay, other than what we've already done. We just want to make sure we're at the corner and line that up. So on this card, this much is going to be cut away. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could make it, you could move down a little bit and you can have these be a little bit sharper, or you could move the sides down a little bit and have it be a little bit less. Like, it's completely variable and up to you. All right, now we'll bring the stamp pad in. We're not cutting anything just yet, but now we need our espresso and our evergreen for our little plants here. So let's do our evergreen first. Now this is what you need to kind of decide. I did 2 evergreens and 3 little berry bushes, and you could do the same, you could do opposite, you could do 3 and 3, up to you. I would just recommend at least one of them be 3. So I think I'm going to do one here, and I do leave the stamp on the paper a little bit longer on the watercolor paper, just so that it can soak that up a little bit better. It's some major decision making right here, I'm telling you. Okay. So we are done with that piece. Now we need to close that so we don't accidentally use it. We come in with our espresso. And it didn't do the berry very well, but that's okay, because like we already talked about, we are going to cover those up with something else. Fantastic. Okay, let's let that dry just a smidge before we futz with it a little more. Actually, I take that back. We are going to take the mask off. Possibly easier said than done. So there we have our beautiful stamping. And let's stamp this again, and then we'll move on to our next stamping. Alright, put this all in. This should still line up because we didn't move anything. Perfect. And this adds more color back to our flower and makes what we ended up causing to be slightly blurry to have that definition back again. Of course, it does not want to focus, because why focus? There we go. So you can see the darker spots where the lines originally blurred, but then we have the stark lines again because of our fresh stamping. Okay. Now, let's actually do our next stamping. Let's see. Now, originally on my first card, I did it after I folded it. But I think we can definitely get away with doing this right now. And I did my espresso ink 3 times, so it was nice and dark. Okay, all of the stamping on our card base itself is done. So let's bring in our envelope and our scarlet piece, and our stamp pad. And a bit of scratch paper just to be safe. And we are going to use our scarlet ink again. And we are going to random stamp the smaller poinsettia. I am turning and rotating it so it's not the same position every time. And I'm also making sure to stamp off the edge on all the edges. Some edges a little bit better than others. And we can go back in and fill in some here and there. But I think I'm going to be okay with how this is. And then there's a 3-berry cluster. Then I'm going to come in and be rotating as well. And we're going to call that good. Before I put the ink away, let's grab our envelope. And I'm actually going to stamp over to the front. So instead of masking off like I do, I will pull it over to the front, and I actually might pull this one down a little bit further on this card, on this envelope rather. So you want to make sure that you do it on the address corner and not the stamp corner, because we don't want to interfere with the stamp corner. So that's going to be this corner. And how many you do is kind of up to you and what makes your heart happy. Okay. So that is the envelope. So when we close it, we have a beautiful envelope on that back side, and we have some carry over on the front. And if I wanted, I could do another one down here in the corner, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just leave it. And I'm going to make sure to not do this so I don't mess that up. Okay, so we are done with that. So before we glue things together, let's go ahead and do some trimming. I am going to bring in my paper trimmer so that I can do the straight parts, just to make sure that they're straight. I'm going to move this up just a smidge so that I don't end up right on the point. So I'm going to keep the same angle, but I'm just going to move up just a smidge. And I'm just cutting it to our stamp line. And so then when I do this other side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to move it up just a smidge. Measuring it probably would have been ideal, but sometimes we just don't want to, right? So, and then what I will do is I will erase this mark. I'm actually going to trim off this piece. This can be used maybe some other time, some other way. It's a pretty decent sized scrap, so I don't want to just destroy it. Alright, so I am going to trim off these pieces. Just to make that cutting a little bit easier. So, and then when we trim this, unlike our mask, we are going to trim on the outside of our line. And as a right-hander, this particular spot right here is the hardest to do. Which is precisely what left-handers feel for the opposite side. So I am cutting right on the edge of that line. If you would prefer, you could cut with leaving some space as if it were a partial die cut. That again is a personal preference. And you could always leave the space, and then if you manage to cut a little bit closer than you'd like, then you could go back to cutting right on that line. One more little cut. Voila. And we will fold this in half. So this piece originally 4 1/4 by 11, so basically it is just one of those sheets cut in half, scored in half. But if you wanted to have a larger piece, you could trim off that 1.5 or whatever that was before you do the rest of your paper and score it at 5 1/2, and then whatever is left over is what you have to work with. There's a little fuzzy right here from where the blade caught. I'm just going to fix that. Okay, so now we have a piece of White Daisy that is 4 by 5 1/4, and this is a piece that is 4 by 6, right? I believe I just cut it in half. Yep, 4 by 6, and it is cut by, or not cut, it is scored at 5 3/8 to give a little bit of space. Oftentimes if you score at the same size, so 5 1/4, it causes weird lumps in your projects and stuff. So we're doing it this way because I wanted some contrast, right? White on white, even if we just didn't have this, white on white, pretty, but not the card that I wanted today. Even if you added that little insert like I always do, still white on white, there's a little bit more definition because the automatic shadow from that paper, but I wanted a little bit more, and so we have our scarlet paper stamped with scarlet ink, which this is going to lighten up a little bit. You can see there's still a little bit of difference there, although this one wasn't stamped much longer before I went live. So that's why we went with this. I did have, I was thinking about just having it plain, but that was a little bit too plain for me. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and flip this over. Having some glue runner would probably help. All right, so we're going to do 2 lines of tape. We are going to do one line here on the outside edge. So we're going to do it here. And then we're going to do another line at the top of the White Daisy here. I only did a super light mark there because I don't want it to accidentally show through. Now, as you heard me say, hopefully you heard me say it, there is some size discrepancy between the two of them. And like I said, I did that on purpose so that things would fit together very nicely. Okay, so we are going to line up the bottom and the sides of our piece, and you can see our fold is here. We have space here, which is why we didn't just do the flap full of glue. We do at the furthest edge of one and the furthest inside edge of the other. So furthest outside, furthest inside. And then you should have them overlap in a way that's beneficial to you as opposed to detrimental to you. All right, so now we have our little kind of booklet. And yes, there's a little bit of color in here. So if you didn't want to have that much, you could score it slightly differently. That's up to you. But I wanted to be able to have a space to write instead of just on the Scarlet, so they didn't have to use a special pen or pencil or anything like that. Now, because our Scarlet is a little bit longer, right, because our piece would fit in here normally perfectly, what you can do is dry fit, and you can just bring it all the way down to the edge like this if you would like. I actually kind of like that. So let's center it up and take a look versus this one over here. Slightly different looks. I actually like this one, so we're gonna do this one. If you wanted it to be this, what I would recommend is taking it out and using your small guillotine trimmer for that, so that you could have it all lined up perfectly and be good to go. All right, so not too worried about the Scarlet. I'm going to make sure that okay, I think that's about as centered as I'm going to be able to get it with eyeballing and not measuring. And there we have our card. See the difference down here at the bottom? One goes all the way to the edge and the other does not. And when you open it, neither one of them go all the way up to the top, but that's good because this watercolor cardstock is already thicker than what we normally use for our cards, and so it's going to try to not fold. So once you get it into the envelope, or if you put it under something heavy for a little bit, then it will be a little bit more happy to oblige. All right, so what are we going to do for our bits and bobs? And then I do have somewhere oh, here we go. So here is my original sample, just to show you kind of how that looks. And I can show you, we can pick one and then do a second one. So let's put our little bits on here for our center. So I did 3. I thought that was a good number. It probably fits 4, but I didn't really like how that looked. Oops. All right, so we could then go and do, right, we could do these in this, and that would be perfectly fine. Or we could do our clear sparkles. I just said, oh goodness, why did those come off? See, and these ones fit perfectly as well. And this card does take, if you do it this way, it does take up a good number of embellishments. But it is a Christmas card, right? So it's okay to be a little bit fancier. All right, so that is our clear sparkles. Now let's take a look at our other two options. Oh goodness. So we have Pine and we have Seabrook. So let's take a look against this. I think I actually like the darker. I like Pine. So let's just punch a couple of these out. And let's see if we can do this with the smaller size, or if we do need the larger size. Where did it go? Did it fall out and I missed it? All right, let's try this again. It was stuck. Alright, so the 1/8 inch size puts it inside of the circle. So it just barely fits. If we did a larger size, this is a regular sized punch, and I think this one is going to be too large. I think it's going to be way too big. Most definitely way too big. Oh! And apparently I took the backing off as well. Oh, it's still attached. I see. Then the other option is the Chomper. And this one's kind of a middle size between the three of them. And that is actually a fairly decent size. The only downside is if you're using the shimmer trim and the punches, you have a backing on here that you then have to get off. I'm not going to go through and do the rest of them because I know that's a little bit time consuming. So that is another option for you, and it makes your card flat, and you could do the larger punch for that center, so you could do a different color in the center there, or stickles, right, like we talked about. So there is that. Let me move all of this stuff out of the way. Okay. Card 1. Rhonda is probably gone already. Rhonda, I hope you have a good evening, and I hope you enjoyed the replay. And let's move on. Moving stuff out of the way. Okay, so this next card is going to be, the process of it is going to create 2 cards. Okay, so we're going to start with this card. And I was inspired by a card that Mei made. I do believe it was a good number of years ago. But I thought this was so fun, and you could flip the paper over and use the other side, which is what we're going to do for the card that we make tonight, just so you could see both sides. And yeah, it's super adorable. I haven't figured out what to put in here, right? I left this open so that I could put a little something in there if I wanted to. I haven't figured out what I want to do just yet. So if you have any ideas, let me know. I would love to hear them. All right, so believe it or not, this card is super easy to do. So before I go over my pieces, what are we using? We're using 2 different stamp sets. We are using Gnomes for Autumn, which is scrapbooking. So these super fun things, we are doing interesting things with our sentiment, okay? And then we are using Harvest Blessings for the wheat and part of the sentiments as well. Okay, and then we are also using the little mini envelope thin cut, and I've already cut them all out, so you don't have to worry about that taking up some time. But this little guy, it's still available. Shoot, it was available a couple weeks ago. I forgot to check and see if it's available now still, but I do believe it is. So I do have the Stamps on Blocks. So we are on this set, Gather with Grateful Hearts. We are just using Grateful Hearts, so I have some Post-its to cover up the rest. And then we have You Are in Our, so it's originally You Are in Our Thoughts, so I cut off Thoughts, and we're going to put that together. And we need our pen. We will be using one of the cork shapes. And yeah, a little bit of foam as well. Where did that go? Let's move some things out of the way so we can get going. What do we have here? So we of course have our envelope and card base. Right, that's going to be a given. We have 4 by 5 1/4. We have 2 envelopes cut from the April through June mix-in paper packet, which is still available. set that piece off to the side for a second. We have a piece from Cozy Up. The rest of the paper, except for the burlap paper, is from the Cozy Up paper pack. So this piece 4 by 5 1/4. This one is 2 by 6 for the envelope. We have sage. That is, where is my paper? Three by 3 3/4. We have white that is 2 3/4 by 3 1/2. We have the just the inside for our envelope, and then we have 2 pieces for the inside, one Cozy Up, one from the Mix-In, 3/8 and 1/2 inch by 4, both of them. You saw me put a paper off to the side. This is 3 5/8 by 5, and we're going to be using this to stamp off on for our wheat image, but we're going to be using this piece for our third card. So it sounds difficult. I promise it's not. So let's go ahead and do our stamping. Actually, don't really need that. So we want to put this here. We're going to put this one here. We need our wheat image, and we are going to use Mocha ink. And let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to stamp off 3 times. Okay, so we are going to kind of line these up once, kind of right in the center twice, and on the far side 3 times, and then once on our rectangle here. Voila. Right? Pretty fantastic. Super simple. Awesome. Now, while we still have our wheat out, we're done stamping the wheat on those pieces, but let's do kind of the same thing that we just did, but on our envelope. Right? So we're going to ink up our wheat, and we're not going to go over, we're just going to go to the top once, twice, 3 times. Okay, and so this lines up with this. I mean, it's obviously not perfect, it's a little bit larger space, but so that plays into that card, which I'm going to grab the envelope for the other card because I wasn't supposed to do that part yet. Anyway, we had to weed out. That's what we did. Okay, those 2 are for the other card. Goodness. All right. Now we are going to set this envelope aside. We're going to bring back in our wheat piece, and we have our grateful hearts. So we're going to ink that up. Make sure it's inked up well. Pull off our mask. And line that up so hopefully it's straight. Not too shabby. Right? Now the first part of it, you are in our voila. All right, so we're done stamping for this card. Clearly I need a new blade in my trimmer. So just allow me to give my paper a bit of a haircut. Alright, so that piece is done. Now we're almost ready to just assemble. Right, this one is super fast. So let's go ahead and fold on the lines for one of our envelopes. One envelope is going to be closed up completely, like you can see. So let's go ahead and do some stitching. Right, super simple. We're not going to do any piercing with it. Just dash lines. This goes super quick, as you can see. And you don't have to be perfect at it. On the second one, we're just going to fold the bottom and the sides, and we're only going to do the dashes on the bottom and the sides because it's going to be open and faced towards the card front. So unless someone bends it, they're not going to see that there's no stitching. If you want to, you are welcome to go ahead and do the stitching on there anyway, right? Because it takes all of, what, 15, maybe 20 seconds? Like that. All right. So, because we are going to use the leaves on the front of this card, we're going to use the orange words on the inside of the envelope. Now this does not go all the way down to our fold because we don't need it to, because we are going to leave it open, and this is not keeping closed very well, so let me fix this. I think I just need to use some liquid adhesive here, just because of the pressure of the folds. Now I do have these white pieces in here so that I could have a little bit more to close it. And so sorry. But like I talked about at the beginning, I wanted to leave that part open so I could put something in there if I found the right thing to put in there. So let me put a block on there while we do this. And so for that part, I just used a scrap piece of cardstock. Just a tiny one. And So I did this and I cut it, and then I cut it a little bit too short when I did that. So actually, let's do it this way. So we want to make sure that it folds still. And so see, I did that again too. I did it again. It's just a little bit too short. That's fine. That's fine. We'll just cut it in half like we did the first time. Like I did the first time. You guys weren't here for that part. So we will move this down so it's underneath our flap. Make sure that it's all tucked in nice. So we'll open up our side. We'll open up the bottom. Put a little dash of glue. And we'll close our bottom. Then we'll do the same thing for the other side. Maybe have the, straight side on the outside. Might be an idea. Okay. Or just cut it the right size to begin with, and you won't have to do that nearly as much. And then just a little dot on the white daisy scrap and in the corner. And then we'll just close. Put this over here. We'll put that block on it. All right, this one, we're going to go ahead and fold things again. Make sure it's all nice and creased. And then we're going to take 2 of our little squares. The first square we are going to put right in the center of the bottom of our envelope flap, our bottom envelope flap. And we're going to close this up. And then we are going to add a little bit of glue on our sides and close those in. And we're going to add our little rectangle right in the center. Of course, nothing wants to stay closed right now. And then we're going to close it. All right, so let's put that over here as well. All right, those are drying. Let's put everything else together, because that's all the hard stuff. Everything else is easy at this point. All right, so let's do the envelope first so that it can dry while we are doing the rest of this. That's one of my worries, is that my envelope flap won't be dry yet when I'm cutting it, and it will shift and I will cut it wrong and I won't have any more paper or anything to be able to fix it. All right, does anybody else have that worry? Just me? All right. Burnish that glue down, like always. let's do our inside first. And you can do tape runner, or you could do liquid glue. Either way works. And I had it out so it was easy, so I just went with the liquid glue. Alright, so we're just going to overlap these a smidge. How much is up to you. That part is not like super important as to the how much. You could have them be right next to each other instead of overlapping if you'd like. On this particular card, I debated on having these strips on the left side or the right side, and I just thought it went better together visually having them on that left side. So that again is one of those things that it's up to you. One of the bonuses of liquid glue is you have the ability to shift things around if they are not in quite the right position. Okay. Scissors. I don't know if you do this sometimes, but sometimes I just like to make fun patterns on the back side of the stuff I'm popping up. No reason, just makes me happy. If you're new to my channel, yes, I do tend to use more foam tape than I really actually need, according to some people. Those some people are not me. So I do what makes my heart happy. All right, a little bit too much. That's okay. Give everything a good press. Helps the backing paper come up a little bit easier, usually. And there's always the piercing tool trick as well, which I often do. for this one, we're just going to center top bottom and have the same size-ish border on that left side. All right, our little guys are done and happy, so we're going to bend this guy just a little bit. We want it to pop up a little bit. Super simple. Add glue to the back side and attach. It would be fun to print off one of those little tiny books, right? The book cover, and put that in there. That would be super cute. All right, we're going to use one of these guys. And they also have adhesive on the back side, so they are ready to go once you can get that off. And voila. All right, cut this, close this. Now here's a little secret for you. We don't need to do it today, thankfully, but if you have a piece that you want to put on your envelope, but you are an 1/8 of an inch short, or even 1/4 of an inch short, go ahead and put it on there and line it up with the fold, right? We'll pretend. So you'll line it up with the fold. That much is too much. But like if your piece goes to like here, that much is enough. You can put that on there and then just cut off that little bit. You do cut off some of the seal that's already on your envelope, but you can always add a strip of tape, and they can peel off the backing. You, whoever, can peel off the backing when you're ready to send it. So that is card number 2. All right, so let's set these aside. And card number 3. Now, we already started it, right? Remember I showed you these 2 pieces. Super simple. We're only going to add just a little bit of stuff to it, and then we'll be done. And we'll end up with this card here. I apologize for all my notifications going off. I forgot to silence them. So, we have our envelope done. Fantastic. Let me turn off sound so you don't get that. And do that over here. Okay. So what do we have now? We have, we are going to use the same stamp set. Harvest Blessings for My Heart is Filled with Gratitude, for our sentiment, and then we just have paper pieces. So we're not really adding a ton more stuff. So of course we have our card base and envelope, right? We have our inside 4x5 1/4. We have our little stripe for the inside, which is 3/8 by 5 1/4. We have our front 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. We have our mocha that is 3 3/4 by 5 1/8. We have 5/8 by 5. We have mocha glitter paper, which is 1/2 inch by 5. And then a piece of white daisy, which is 3/4 of an inch by 2 3/4. Alright, so we only have one more bit of stamping to do with our sentiment, so let's do that first. I really like being able to do multiple cards with kind of one card's worth of stuff. It's super awesome. Alright, that's all of our stamping. Done stamping. So, let that dry. And let's glue some things together. Alright. Let's do the inside piece first. I'm going to do a mix of wet glue and tape runner for this card. All right. I don't know why I grabbed that so strangely. All right. Inside, done. You could do the brown instead of the tin roof looking piece if you wanted. I almost did. And then when I flipped it over to put the glue on it, I decided that I liked that side better. Alright, so this one has just a small border. Okay. And we'll add our wheat stamped piece. Goodness. Also a small border. Alright. I don't know why I am running my glue so far off the inside of the edge tonight. That's so strange. No, we don't want to glue that yet. Alright, that's okay. It can sit there. Let's let it sit upside down just in case. Alright, so onto our mocha glitter on top of our mocha cardstock. Alright, we want to burnish this well because we are going to do some adjusting to it. Alright, so perfect. It's the right length. So what we're going to do is we're going to line this up, right? And we're going to adjust the inside here. So If you can hold it together, that will work best. It doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of close. And then we're going to bring in that hole punch again. And we are going to punch in the center, but in a little bit because we are going to banner cut that edge. And we're going to do one in the center. And just to make it easy, and it doesn't have to be perfect center, that's okay. Okay. So, if you want, you can save those for something else. We are not going to use them. We'll move them off to the side. But we are going to bring in our scissors. And actually, let's put in another punch here because those are kind of far apart. And we're going to trim between our circles. I know, you're like, what the heck? Why are we doing this? Well, because a lot of glue does not like to stick to glitter paper. The material, it just doesn't like to have things stick to it. So we're cutting away what's going to go underneath our sentiment. Okay, so let's add good coverage with our tape runner. And then on our tiny little pieces, we're going to go ahead and add some liquid glue. And anywhere you might have missed. And then we're going to put this on our wheat piece. Okay. Now we didn't have to trim anything off, so we can go ahead and attach this on here since we have glue. All right. So let's create a little shallow banner edge on our sentiment. Okay. And now I took some of the roll and I put it on some backing from the previous sticker sheet, and I cut them using a straight edge and a knife so that I would have some super thin pieces of foam tape. Right? So these are front and back. And so we're going to put some here in the center where we cut out. And then we're going to put some on the top and bottom edge of our banner. And we're going to go very close because there's not a whole lot of space. Alright, so super close. top edge, bottom edge, and then we'll dry fit it to make sure. Perfect. Now take off all the backings and our card will be done. All right. Make sure you put your sentiment on right side up. Now you center it. I did not get it quite down all the way, but that's okay. So that is card number 3. So I think these cards are all super fun. They were so easy to do. Right? And because of our paper, you have the ability to flip things over and have a different look for no more effort. So those are our cards. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for this 3 on Thursday class. 3 cards every Thursday. Measurements are included, and I walk you through the whole thing. So if you have any questions about the cards that we made today or any of the products that I use, whether you're interested in the products or how to get them or becoming a maker yourself, I would be happy to answer those questions for you. Thank you again for showing up either at the live or on the replay. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button if you like the video, and I would love to have you share it as well. Thank you all so much and have a fabulous evening. Bye.